Oh, mate, I'll tell you after the theme ends. Okay, sweet. Who are they? So it was a remix I got done by my friend. And so what we did was we merged the greatest character ever, Jack Atlas, my boy, the Sultan of Speed. He's from an anime series called Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. And then we merged that with another song which I don't want to name because that one's copyrighted. So I used that one for the bridge. The bridge of the song. And and yeah, that was it. Okay, he added some. He got some vocals added, because he's the goat. And yeah. So yeah, he's the MVP. So that's why he's the MVP. And so yeah, we've got some topics to do. Why is it lagging for? Strange. Let's pause on my end.
Hello.
So yeah. So yeah, a lot to discuss today. It's got that stupid flashing symbol. It's going to really annoy me. But other than that, yeah. How's everything going? If you guys want me to discuss the thing with Bowler Hat Man, then let me know. But yeah, other than that, like it's a bit of a frustrating topic to cover, to be honest. Yeah, it's a bit of a frustrating topic, to be honest. I don't know. I just didn't feel like it was that productive. In some ways, but I don't mind. We can do that later, to be honest, because I want to finish around 5:30, 6 at the latest. So yeah. No, it's not upsetting. It's just it was so exhausting. Honestly, it was so exhausting. Like it was tiring to a psychotic degree. Like I don't know. I don't think that is my best work. It was, yeah, pain. Pain is what I felt. But other than that, yeah, it's just he's a dense guy. I think he just he just couldn't understand what I was saying, and he was arguing against points I didn't make. That was the main issue. So that was frustrating. But yeah, We can discuss it later if you want. If someone brings it up in about an hour or so, we can discuss it. The fact that he just kept making stuff up. Um, yeah, the fact that he just kept making stuff up was frustrating. He didn't acknowledge the points I made. I don't know. Yeah, people like that, they really do, and it's depressing because then you remember people that idiotic actually live in the world. That's the other thing. Like you forget these people can vote. This guy has an audience. This guy has a YouTube channel, even though he says he can deal without it. Um, but yeah, I don't know, it's just a bizarre world. Like I think he's living with the aliens, to be honest. But other than that, there was a new game I was looking at getting, which looked quite fun. It's Pokemon with guns, so I might get that later. Um, so I've just seen some funny memes now on Twitter. Should probably jump off. Um, but yeah, hopefully everyone's okay in the chat. Been talking for about 10 minutes, so we'll go into main topics. I did forget to put a community post up, which I really need to get better at that. To be honest, I really do need to get better at doing that sort of stuff. But other than that, I don't mind. I like doing audience questions because people come up with stuff I don't really think about, which is always fun. In like different ways of looking at things, which is good. So I will try and remember it. It's just been a busy week, as you can imagine. But I don't know. I feel like insulting him, especially on stream, isn't a good idea. But then, he accused me of being Alexatir, or he tried to claim I was using Alexatir arguments and Brexiteer arguments, and I was like, okay, buddy, nice straw man once again. So, I don't. Why should I be? Why should I be kind to someone who's idiotic? I don't know. But anyways, let's go on for the topics. Unless anyone's got anything else they want to add to the conversation. But yeah, I'll never change the world. In the grand scheme of things, I'll never achieve much with my YouTube channel. I won't change much. Um, like, okay, bud. Thanks, Scribby. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the sarcastic chat. Hope you're well. Yeah, I'm fine, mate. Honestly, I'm a bit down, but like I said, I've been. I don't know if you saw it on Discord. I think yeah, you're in the Discord. Yeah, it's just depressing days make me play the song "Pound Cake" by Drake. Honestly, it makes me think about things a bit because Drake's verse in it is probably one of his best verses. Honestly, he talks about holding all the cards and getting rid of the jokers, and now everyone wants to play chess. It do be feeling like that once you got settled, and then everyone else is like, no, I don't like it. I want to do something else. Yeah, it's a bit unsettling, but I would love to have more competition in the space. To be honest with you, more like people have different takes. NJ would be one, but that's about it. You don't really meet that many interesting people in this area. It's full of just goons. It's just full of goons. Thank you, Sock. It's just full of goons who just don't know what they're talking about. Honestly, the fact that my man's pulling out a book from 2016, making up things. Oh yeah, Labour are going to build this many houses. Like, what's your source on that? And then he might as well say the equivalent of
my source is that I made it the fuck up.
Honestly, I don't get it. Actually, let me see. There was one I was meant to message. I was meant to show him how the soundboard works. So yeah, someone else messaged. Remember, that's not. Yeah, it's honestly, you guys found that funnier than I did. You guys found that funny. That line's gonna give me PTSD. That line's going to give me absolute PTSD, honestly. I'm going to hear someone at work or somewhere else say that's not an issue, and I'm going to lose my mind. So, you know. But I think that's the thing, right? I don't care about the MAGA goons, right? Because they don't... I know they're full of nonsense. So... Oh, this boomer. Absolute boomer. Bear with me, guys. Sorry, I need to sort this old man out. My man. But, yeah. Oops. I know you post a link in the server, so I don't know. I always thought you guys were people resourceful in the server to find where the thing was. There we go. Someone has replied to me. Being cynical, okay, it's fine. We were joking about it because Bowler. Alright, we don't... Easy with that word, Sock. Let's not do that. Let's not throw that word around. But with the MAGA people, right? The thing is, I know they're stupid up front. Like, you can tell if someone's like, I'm a Trumper. You know, you're like, okay, this person is not worth listening to at all. But with Bola Hammond, he's on paper he's a pro-Labour guy. He's a pro-EU guy. On paper, he should be fairly reasonable. But then once you start discussing things with him, you're like, this man is, he's not just a clown. He's the entire he's not the clown. He's the entire circus. That's what you realise when you listen to his stuff or watch his stuff. Like, it's just madness. It's absolute madness. Pain is what I felt in that conversation, because no matter what I said to him, he just kept deflecting. It's not an issue. They'll Steph Curry the it is an insult, but it's one of those ones where you kind of it's one of the insults you kind of phase out over time, I think, especially on the internet where people take things the wrong way anyways. I would go with the classic, he's not a clown, he's the entire circus. That's the line of thought I would be going down. But yeah, other than that, like, if you guys want me to continue to discuss it, then let me know. But other than that, I'm happy. I'm more than happy to move on. Because, I want to say, when it comes to some of the arguments he was making and the levels of deflection I saw, I wanted to not be that bad. But, I was surprised, unlike Nate Diaz.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
I was genuinely surprised, What's this one? Oh, yeah. This was actually me, my reaction to his arguments.
Snake, are you okay? Snake?
Honestly, it felt like I died. And, if Labour lose, I'm sure I'm going to get blamed for it somehow as well. But, if that's the case, then...
That's right. Don't blame yourself. Blame me.
No, the day that happens, then then whatever. But yeah, if they somehow lose because some guy with less than 10k subs cost them an election, then I must be one of the most powerful YouTubers on the space if I made Labour lose, and I'll be doing this, hitting you with one of these. But yeah, let's carry on. Let's actually get into topics now. If you guys are happy with that. Jesus Christ, that's actually so true. I need a cup of coffee to get out of bed, but to make a coffee, I need to get out of bed. Oh yeah, Labour are going to grow the economy. How are they going to do that? They're going to raise taxes. They've said they're not going to raise taxes. They're going to borrow more money. It's like they've said they're not going to borrow more money. Well, in power, they're going to have to do it because otherwise they won't grow the economy. And so, do you know what? Actually, I did have a lot on Labour here. Let me pull out that FT article. Just thinking about it, I need the FT article. as I type on my desk that I've cramped because I'm a moron. It's FT fiscal rules. Here it is. I'm trying to think, where is it? Debt. And so this is the key here. She's saying, we will not borrow to fund day-to-day spending, something that he failed to understand what that meant. That means you're essentially getting rid of the deficit, at least for day-to-day spending. And her saying, I'm clear, we will reduce the national debt as a share of the economy. And that's the reason why they've kind of gotten rid of the £28 billion promise. It's one of the reasons anyways, because if you're borrowing £28 billion at the end of your term, that's going to increase our debt to GDP ratio. And that means Labour are going to ultimately fail on this promise because they won't be able to reduce the debt quick enough, the debt to GDP ratio. And this is something they've made, this is a box that they put themselves in. That's the problem. They didn't have to promise this. They didn't have to talk about debt to GDP ratio, but they did. And that means you either grow the economy, right? And you could do that via borrowing or taxation, or you, well, there's not much else you can do, to be fair, to grow the economy. To reduce our debt to GDP ratio, you have to grow the economy, and they're not going to do that. So, again, I'm just baffled. I'm baffled at the arguments he used. I'm baffled at the fact that Labour would make such a big deal about the fiscal rules. They were even talking about it the night we had the debate, the fiscal rules, right? They were talking about it a lot. But yeah. I only just got a notification now from YouTube. No wonder. Yeah, I don't know why YouTube would notify you now, considering I made sure I pinged it about half an hour. Normally, what happens with YouTube is you should, if I schedule the stream early enough, you should get a ping half an hour before the stream, and then when the stream starts. It might be, maybe it's an issue with your YouTube notifications. Like if you turn the bell notification on, it should work. But yeah, let's get into topics now, because I've got a lot to discuss, and we'll start with some Brexit stuff in Northern Ireland, because there was some big news that came out. I think it was today, with this stuff.
Hello, good evening. Now we're told Brexit is done. Boris Johnson fought a whole election on the premise of getting Brexit done.
Let me know if there are any audio issues as well.
And now that it really definitely is completely done, no one wants to talk about it anymore. Rishi Sunak and Keir Starmer both want to move on because, as I said, Brexit is definitely done. Apart from, it's not really done, is it? Just look at what's happening today in Northern Ireland.
There's still the import checks to discuss as well, because I don't think they've kicked in yet.
Finally, after 2 years, it looks like power sharing is about...
That is, I'm not going to lie, right? Whoever has picked this picture has done Donaldson dirty here. This is... Yeah... Trust me, I've worked in customer service, so I've dealt with clowns before. It's just I didn't realise this specific person was a clown. They've done Donaldson dirty with this picture.
Like power sharing is about to be restored, and there could be a functioning government again. But the reason for the collapse...
Now they have got it is back. I think Stormont is back, and we'll discuss that in a minute.
Hasn't been resolved. Where do you put the post-Brexit border between the EU and the UK? On the island of Ireland, down the Irish Sea.
It's gone down the Irish Sea.
This is a problem that hasn't been and maybe can never be resolved.
Wait, what? The border's in the Irish Sea? Sophie, what are you talking about? The border's in the Irish Sea. This clip is from just a few days ago. What?
And it's not the only outstanding thing on the Brexit to-do list either. For many, the reason for voting to leave the EU was to gain control of our borders and, frankly, to bring down net migration. But today, the Office for National Statistics has projected the UK population will grow to 74 million in the next decade or so, including an extra 6.1 million people through net migration. So if Brexit was about controlling our borders, well, that hasn't been done either. Whether it's those long-promised international trade deals, a low-tax economy, freedom from the grip of European courts, or even something as simple as working out where our trade borders are, nearly 8 years on, it's hard to see how Brexit has been completed. You know, if it was a computer game, I'm not really sure we'd even be at the boss level yet.
I think the boss level is the import checks. So yeah, it's I don't know what she was talking about when it came to the border. Like the border's going in the Irish Sea. So I don't know what she was talking about with that one. But we will go to this article here from today, 2:00. Historic as Northern Ireland. So I keep pronouncing my C's like I'm Gary Neville. That's bad. Devolved government has returned. Is this by Tony Connolly? Is this a big essay? I don't know who's written this. Okay, Tony Connolly puts his name to all his books, so we should be okay. Poots is the Speaker of the Northern Ireland Assembly, former Deputy Leader. Poots. Oh, he was the one after Foster, yes. Yeah, he was the Agricultural Minister. Devolved government has returned to Northern Ireland today, with Sinn Féin Michelle O'Neill making history as the first nationalist First Minister, and that's big. It does show you the massive change going on, I think, in Northern Ireland, where you have a nationalist First Minister in charge of Stormont. DUP leader Poots was elected the Speaker, and so obviously that must have been part of the compromise to get Stormont back open. The DUP's largest unionist party in Northern Ireland gave the green light for the recall of the political institutions on the back of its deal with the UK government, which is going to be interesting to see what Sunak actually promised Stormont. That should be interesting. Sinn Féin picks are a big statement of intent. These ministerial picks, I'm not too familiar with the people they're picking. To be fair, should move quickly to produce a draft budget and need the allocation of 3.3 billion financial package, which comes alongside Stormont's return. I'm not familiar with a lot of these names, with any of these names, to be honest with you. So Naomi Long, I'm familiar with. She's the leader of the Alliance Party in Northern Ireland. But yeah, Robin Swain, he's part of the UUP, who are kind of one of the I think the least bad unionist party that are there. Let's see, there's a DUP member there as well, and a junior minister. So I'm assuming these are ministers without portfolios. The community minister's a DUP guy. Paul Given. Oh yeah, I remember Paul Given. I used to make jokes about his name. Paul in charge of education. That's a given. Yeah. He's too easy. It's too easy to make jokes about that guy. So yeah, I used to make jokes about him all the time. My view on Earth is that it's Poots. Yeah. He's a bit of a nut job, but this is history in the making here. We get to witness. I know, people in GB might not care about this that much. People in GB don't care about this that much. But I think for Ireland and Northern Ireland, this is big news. So yeah, this is great. So I'm pretty excited to see how this is going to go. So yeah, we'll cut to that. We've done the Stormont bit. Let's do. I found this clip quite funny.
He is biased.
Well, I am looking at this from the point of view of the Culture Secretary.
Yeah,
and
that's why I'm asking you.
And
so do you think they're biased?
And the evidence shows that there is a perception of bias in relation to the BBC.
What do you think?
So a perception of bias. So people perceive something else to be biased.
Do you think, as Culture Secretary, that
which is not the same thing, by the way. If I perceive the sky to be red, it does not mean the sky is red.
BBC is biased?
I think that on occasion it has been biased, yes.
In relation to what?
Well, this report isn't about incidents, but we have seen...
So, yeah, it's been biased. Okay, for example, well, this report's not about that.
...recently that...
She went to the Bowler Hat Man School of Arguing.
It's had to apologise for its own reporting, for example, in relation to the attack in the hospital in Israel, so in Gaza.
What's the difference between mistake and bias, surely?
Well, there is a perception amongst the public that the BBC is biased.
And the public think most media outlets are biased, to be honest. I mean, we'll have to see.
Culture Secretary, it's important that I look at that. I must say, these are issues that I have discussed with the BBC. They've taken on board.
Yeah, but I'm asking you about the evidence of bias. Where's the evidence?
The evidence of bias is what audiences believe is the content of the BBC and
that's
how
perception,
they...
That's not...
Effectively, what she's saying is this.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
not evidence. That's
Yes.
perception.
That is evidence. Impartiality is about perception of the things that are being broadcast by the BBC, and the evidence in relation to that perception is that
Perception and evidence are different things.
the evidence from Ofcom, having done studies and questionnaires of the public, is that the BBC's ratings in relation to impartiality have gone down. And
That's public perception. Like, the public can be wrong about this. You have to give specific examples of when the BBC were biased.
I and the BBC think that there is more that the BBC can do in order to improve that.
And the BBC's was run by a Tory stooge. I don't know if he's still there now.
Which other broadcasters are you investigating? Which other broadcasters do you feel potentially are not impartial?
The reason we've done this review is because the BBC is in a special position.
Yeah, but I'm asking you which other broadcasters you think are not impartial.
My job as the Culture Secretary is to... it has a special role in relation to the BBC, and the reason for that is because the BBC is funded by the public.
I understand.
You know, this argument she's making here is complete garbage. Is that evidence? No, it's not evidence. You know, it's, oh yeah, you know, do you think the BBC's biased? Yes. Can you give an example? Well, this report isn't about specific examples. It's about public perception. It's like, again, the public can be wrong. The public have been wrong on lots of things. So it doesn't make sense. There's more I want to discuss.
Kieran,
Tory MP gets schooled on social housing. This one's pretty good.
UK families already have priority for social housing, so what's the problem that the government is trying to solve?
Well, I think this is just speculation at this stage. I don't think Downing Street's confirmed that there is any hard and fast policy in
Well,
development.
they're saying it's a consultation on this.
Well, as I said, I don't think they've actually confirmed there's any new policy necessarily. I think it's true to say that in different parts of the country there is a lot of variation that you see in terms of the occupation of social housing. It depends how local councils tend to implement it. If there are parts of the country where we think it isn't working fairly...
I think specifically they talk about London here, but it doesn't really make sense what he argues.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that actually people who spent a long time in a country contributing to its welfare state in one way or another get some extra help. I don't have a problem with that in principle, but you'd have to see how it works in practice.
But the rules at the moment are that, I mean, 90%, these are government figures, 90% of new social housing lets go to UK nationals.
Yeah. As I said, it's a variation across the country, so there might be a positive national figure, but you do see in different parts of the country, London in particular, the figures aren't the same as you're talking about on a national level. And so I think it's not wrong to say, let's look at how it's working at a local level, can we do something to tweak that? And I don't have anything against the principle, which is that if you're part of a welfare state over a long period of time, you're paying into it over a long period of time, that you should get some recognition for that.
Right, there is some...
So again, this is another example of this.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
variation in the figures. Kieran is right, and we can come on to an example in just a moment. But broadly speaking, what's your reaction to the consultation? It isn't policy, but a consultation.
It's the quickest backtrack I've ever heard, actually. But
well, I'm not the government, so I'm not backtracking policy.
Yeah,
it's just
but it wasn't in development. It's consultation. We thought we were going to see something like this in the King's speech. In fact, it's said...
It's just cultural. That's what this is, cultural. British homes for British people. It's like, okay, so where is that not happening? It's like in certain areas, in places in London. It's like, okay, but 90% of the houses are going to British people. It's like, yeah, but like in these specific areas, it's not.
Pretty inadequate proposals on leasehold reform for some people. Already, if we take into account issues like if you live locally, if you've got family locally, if you're working, it's taken into account. And the only people that can have social housing are people who are UK citizens and people who have a right to be here. So the problem the government...
That 10% could be refugees as well. Like, we don't know.
Needs to solve isn't who gets...
Yeah, it's a joke, honestly. 1.2 million people, so many people on the housing list is a complete joke.
Social housing, but how much social housing there is and how much building and lack of building there has been. That's why I think the Labour Party, to be honest, one of these issues that keeps, I think, a lot of politicians who care about this up at night, but we're pledging that 1.5 new homes should be built in that first term of...
That was where I kind of laughed at this, because I think I covered this. Did I cover this last week? I covered this at some point.
About this up at night, but we're pledging that 1.5 new homes.
1.5 new homes. Labour's promise, 1.5 new homes. Now I'm messing this. I can't remember what it is, but it's she misspoke there, but it was funny. I feel like I covered this before. Someone commented about that. I think I might have done some of these before, but I haven't covered them individually. This was pretty funny as well. Tory MP pushing culture wars, moans about it, and then gets called out on the culture wars.
Listen to what Keir Starmer said.
instead of working with the National Trust, so more people can learn about and celebrate the culture and our history. They've managed to demean their work. In its desperation to cling on to power at all costs, the Tory party is undertaking a kind of weird McCarthyism.
1.5 new homes, let's go. I guess it could be one home and half an extension. So it could be a home, one expanded home.
Trying to find woke agendas in the very civic institutions they once regarded with respect.
This is all true. This is all true. You know that the Tories have gone on a culture war because they have nothing left in terms of economics, and they have attacked institutions consistently. They attacked the Supreme Court and other institutions, and the Supreme Court being the highest court in the land, at least in the UK, that can stop them, and they've attacked it. You talked about reform.
Some of the sound quality there. Does he mean you, Ben, when he's talking about the weird McCarthyism, trying to find woke agendas in the very civic institutions they once regarded with respect?
Load of vacuous nonsense, to be honest. The idea, and particularly because on a weekend where the Chancellor is talking about the economy and the headroom he's got to be able to support people and cut taxes, he's the one talking about the woke agenda. Nobody else was talking about it. Yeah. I do think...
This is where it gets brutal.
It speaks to a cultural challenge for Labour, actually, that when we've been discussing really important issues today, he's got no answers to those. He's got.
What do you mean? You guys don't discuss. Guys don't discuss serious issues. That's why you're talking about Rwanda. If you guys were serious, you wouldn't be talking about that. You'd be talking about the fact that we've had minimal growth. You'd be talking about the fact that the social housing crisis. You'd be talking about the cost of living crisis, but instead you don't.
A rhetoric around things he thinks he can win on with a certain groups of people.
But Ben, you've been on this programme many times talking about exactly these issues. I mean, in November 2020, following a report on the connections between colonialism and properties now in the care of the National Trust, including links with historic
awkward
slavery, you were among the signatories of a letter to the Telegraph accusing the National Trust of being coloured by cultural Marxist dogma, colloquially known as the woke agenda. You started it, to use that childish phrase.
I think, well, let's not get into who started it. We'll be going round.
Oh, yes. Keir Starmer can't talk about anything but the woke agenda because he's got nothing. This guy, culture war king, is like, well, let's not discuss who started it because we'll be here all night. It's like, it's you, dickhead. It's you. You're the problem.
That Rishi Sunak
this I found very astonishing.
Up of courtrooms that Rishi Sunak is apparently promising to make sure any appeals are dealt with swiftly is not enough for you.
Well, I'm encouraged by that. I mean, I'm slightly concerned that it suggests that the government itself expects there to be a large number of legal claims, but it is good that these resources are being made available. The government's already done a lot.
Let me just on that point. What do you say to victims of crime, rape victims, for example, who've been waiting 4 years for their case?
4 years. Some been waiting more than 4 years.
To come to court, and they see suddenly Rishi Sunak can.
Oh yeah, that was you, wasn't it? He said he's a blue-collar conservative. Yeah.
Click his fingers and find 150 judges and free up courtrooms.
I'm afraid that criticism is a fair one. I'm also concerned about the implications for our legal system if it is possible, and of course I don't think it will be possible to get all these judges recruited, trained, put into post very quickly. So I don't think on its own that's sufficient.
So they've got money for Rwanda, no money for sorting out the judicial system, money for pushing kind of trying to force through people's asylum claims, but not money for victims of some of the worst crimes that can happen to a person. This is a Boris Johnson stooge getting absolutely cooked.
You have called the report spiteful, vindictive, and the committee a kangaroo court. I mean, why are you indulging in what the committee calls a campaign of abuse and intimidation? They decided he lied. He misled on 9 occasions.
But unless they've got a crystal ball, how they can know that he intentionally did that, I don't know. I don't know what other people are thinking, of course, and what Boris Johnson said.
Have you read this report?
I have. They will come to the dispatch box. They will correct the record, as Boris Johnson did.
He didn't do that, according to this report. He didn't do that.
Well, Boris Johnson corrected the record at least a couple of times.
No, not according to the committee's report today. Are you sure you've read it?
Well, which specific bit are we referring to that he didn't correct?
They said he purported to come to the Commons and correct the statement. But they weren't satisfied. He had. That was another contempt. Mr Johnson had multiple occasions to give evidence. He presented written evidence. He presented oral evidence. He had 250 grand of taxpayers' money to pay for his lawyers, even though he's earned £6 million since September. I mean, you're not saying he's a victim here, are you?
Well, I wouldn't have had the inquiry in the first place, quite frankly, because I think...
That wasn't the question.
Well, I mean, the point is he is entitled to defend himself.
And he has. What was my question?
Well, he's resigned as an MP. He's already gone now.
So he's avoided democracy, actually. He's chosen not to put his case to you and your colleagues in the House on Monday, and he's chosen not to face voters in his own constituency. That's how much he likes democracy.
And when he saw the report, he felt that that was not the case and it wouldn't be possible to actually do that.
When the committee...
This guy is he's just struggling so hard, isn't he? Struggling so hard.
He finds he deliberately misled. He decides, oh no, I think this is an unfair process.
They've got a very difficult job to do on these committees. I have a lot of respect for people
who
do it.
Well, you're calling them a kangaroo court. Don't be disingenuous.
Well,
you don't have respect for them.
You set this would pass the threshold.
You're a member of the House of Commons. Parliament instructed the committee to do this. Boris Johnson set the Privileges Committee up. There is a debate.
Yeah, sometimes like the journalists try and push it too far. They ask like dumb questions to people, especially like when we're looking at the Middle East crisis. But generally, I think her and Ridge do a good job. Derbyshire and Ridge.
Vote on Monday on the report. You'll be voting against it.
I certainly will. Yes.
Why don't you want to stand up for honesty and integrity in public life?
Taking his parliamentary pass away from him as a former Prime Minister is quite unprecedented.
Yeah, because he was a Prime Minister and he misled the House and the country. That's why they're suggesting a suspension of 90 days and removing the pass. It's all the more serious, the committee said.
I think it's this
because he was the Prime Minister.
Johnson's a goon. Anyone tries to defend him is a complete goon. I did see this from what's his man's name? Andrew Neil, now complaining about the he's complaining about the free market.
He worked in newspapers and he doesn't know about magazines and he doesn't know about the particular history of The Spectator. I don't think he'd ever heard of The Spectator until they bid for it, which makes it what it's been and why it's lasted for 200 years. So the idea that these two vital vehicles of mainstream centre-right thought should be owned by Arab money and controlled out of New York by a left-wing Democrat.
Now, Jeff Zucker used to run CNN. Jeff Zucker is not a left-wing Democrat at all.
How do you know he's a Democrat?
Did you see CNN when he ran it during the Trump years?
How do you know he's a Democrat?
Because he is. There's no doubt about that. He's a Democrat.
He's never told anyone how he votes.
Oh, really? I mean, there's no question he's a Democrat.
A left-wing Democrat. Like, he's not Bernie. He's not Bernie or AOC. If anything, he's more like Pelosi, who'd be a conservative in this country.
He turned CNN from a mainstream BBC-ish type
CNN was never a BBC-ish type thing.
Broadcaster into a rabid anti-Trump, anti-Republican vehicle. Everybody knows that. That's come. He boasted.
This is what he said in an interview in November about it. He said, on what you've just said in terms of the anti-Trump stuff, we always believed that our most important job was to report the news and stand up for the truth. Some people wanted to paint that as anti-Trump. We never ever set out to do that or saw that as a strategy. We saw it as pro-truth.
Yeah, he saw it that way. Everyone else saw it as, look, covering Trump is not easy. I've done it myself.
Sure. But I mean, should a government be stepping in because you don't want to be owned by a left-wing Democrat?
No.
He's not a left-wing Democrat. Why she's accepted this framing, I don't know. He's not a left-wing Democrat. But the government to step in is embarrassing when you constantly push the free market nonsense. And, this from Ali Miraj of LBC.
Keen on foreign ownership of the media because I think people, actors, whether they're billionaires...
Picking the Jack Atlas icon, very, very, very smart move there, mine.
...or media moguls or foreign governments can, use that media to persuade a country to do certain things. And
just a quick plug on that. The memberships on the channel start from £1, and I've got some new icons on there which look very nice. From the United States, and MSNBC is closer to what he's talking about. Possibly. I can't remember which one took a turn where is MSNBC, yeah, they're the more pro-Democrat party. You're right, actually.
And not have to deal with the consequences because they don't actually live here.
That's interesting, Josh.
Previous people mentioned was one of them. So on that front, I'm not comfortable with it. Specifically to the Abu Dhabi government, I'm actually finding it quite interesting to hear the sort of right of the Tory party being specifically worried about.
I thought they loved markets, Josh.
True.
Well, this is exactly what I was going to say. It's like you can't have it.
Well, anti-Trump being anti-Trump does show a slight media bias. I'm not gonna lie. It just depends on how your outlet deals with Trump. That's the problem. Like, Fox was quite sycophantic towards him. But if you're constantly going after him for no reason, then, you know, I don't know. It's tough. Like, you got to really, when you criticize someone else, you have to be specific about what you're criticizing.
Both ways.
You've got to love it, haven't you? I love it. Well, no. Hold on a second, Josh. George Osborne is behaving like an absolute capitalist, which is you put money ahead of your principles or any other sort of values you may or
That's true. That is a true capitalist.
may not have. So it does work for some people.
Well, no, quite right. But then you can't say that or be a part of an organ that champions that ideology and then suddenly call for restrictions on ownership when you're slightly worried that perhaps your anti-immigrant line or whatever might be softened by
But Josh, look, okay, look. Well, I know we're being tongue-in-cheek about it, and so I was having a good old laugh with you about it. But look, even governments, when it comes to ownership, for example, on matters of critical national infrastructure or monopolistic businesses, will actually have the ability to regulate certain businesses, be it, you know, the water companies, whatever. Not particularly a good job, but anyway, you know what I mean.
Not particularly a good job. I mean, they're polluting the waterways.
So when it comes to media companies, do governments not have an absolute right to say, look, yes, we believe in the market, yes, we believe in ownership and foreign ownership and many other things, but we're going to draw the line at governments because it's simply too dangerous. We must intrinsically have a free press and the ability of that free press to criticise.
But we do. I mean, to be fair, we have a free press to an extent. I mean, if Lebedev can run one of the newspapers, right? Why shouldn't someone in Saudi Arabia be able to do it? Especially if it's going to be Jeff Zucker who's in charge of it, a guy who ran CNN. Why shouldn't, you know? Why should there be an issue here? Why shouldn't they be? Why shouldn't this Saudi group be able to buy it? It doesn't make sense. I did want to discuss this other clip. So this is particularly bad. This situation with the new immigration rules.
Your situation.
Okay, hi. So first of all, I'd like to say that my situation is not unique. There are many who have similar stories to mine living both in the UK and around the globe. So I moved to Italy in 2007, initially for a year, but then met an Italian, ended up getting married, having our 3 children and making Italy our home. We'd always planned to return to the UK when our children reached school age to be closer to family.
Let me know if the audio is a problem, guys.
Reasons. Then Brexit happened, put a spanner in the works. And I was
Murdoch, a non-dom. I think he's got non-dom status, but he's not British. He's Australian, isn't he?
With the prospect of having to separate my family to sponsor a spouse visa for my husband, either leaving my young children in Italy while I moved to the UK to work to meet the minimum income requirement, or leaving my husband and moving alone with my 3 children, separating them from their father and trying to work while essentially being a single mum. Unwilling to put my family through this hardship, we decided to use the savings route. Not easy in the current climate, but we were getting there and approaching the possibility of applying for the visa. And now the goalposts have changed yet again, with the minimum income requirement set to raise to £38,700. It becomes an impossibility for my family. The average wage in the Scottish Borders, which is where I would move to, is around £32,000. How would I be able to meet that as a full-time mum and the primary caregiver of 3 young children?
All right, Sarah, let's get some... Well, I'm going to get some response to your situation. First of all, from you, Catherine, what would you say to Sarah? Because it's going to make her plan, her family's plan, impossible to come back and resettle in Scotland because of the minimum salary requirement.
Yeah, I feel very much for her personal circumstances. But it's the messages that we've got to deliver about making sure that people that come to this country are contributing and not withdrawing from the state.
But you can make it so they can't withdraw from the state. Like, that's what you can do. Like, she's a British national. Like, you're punishing her. These rules is punishing a British national.
The systems, you know, with education, with healthcare, you know, there's the opportunity for you to retrain or get a different job, or for your husband to get a job that allows you to achieve the salary threshold.
So he's going to have to retrain whilst he's in Italy for a job in Britain. It doesn't make any sense. Or she's going to have to retrain for a job role in order for her husband to come here and her family. Like, it don't make sense, honestly. It doesn't make any sense.
My husband has a job and earns more than the minimum income requirement, but his salary is not taken into consideration.
Bruh, like, it don't... Like... I mean, they can afford to do it then.
Own our own home outright. We're financially secure and stable. It counts for nothing. Now, statistics show that meeting the MIR is significantly more difficult for certain demographics than others. For example, 55% of working women would not be able to meet the current MIR of £18,600 compared with 27% of men. 41% of Scottish people would not be able to meet the requirement compared with 27% of Londoners.
And that makes sense because in London you get paid high salary. So, you know, the whole scheme makes zero sense. Maybe they can base it on regions, which regions you live in, because the national wage is, you know, I think is higher. The minimum wage, I think, is higher in London, I believe.
All right. So why should only certain people or rich people have the right to fall in love with people from abroad?
Well, it's a good question.
British people would not be able to sponsor a spouse visa.
Let me put that to both our politicians, but first of all, again, Catherine, because Sarah has to be the sponsor, and so it's her salary that counts.
I feel very much for the individual circumstances, but we are we're talking about a much bigger picture here, which is making sure that our education system, our housing, our infrastructure.
So the person, the significant other, makes enough money. Like what? Like what? Honestly, he can make enough money for him not to be reliant on the welfare state. Like, this whole system makes zero sense. All they're doing is tearing up families. All that means is that man's going to stay in Italy and he's going to be a net contributor to Italy. That's all that means. It's so stupid. So stupid. This is another one I want to cover, actually. So this is actually switching gears. This is the framing. This is when, you know, when those... This is actually very appropriate, actually. Geez, Johan Olfsson picking Jack Atlas as well. Jack is winning. Jack stays winning in this house. No Kais, sad times. But this is brilliant framing on kind of how politicians, I think, fail people rather than the other way around. And, like, it's up to you to win votes. This was a really interesting interview.
Joining me now is Abdullah Hammoud. He's the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan, which is home to one of the nation's largest Arab American communities. Mayor, thanks for joining us. President Biden is in your state courting union members, but he did not meet with Arab Americans during this trip. Was this a missed opportunity?
You know, I absolutely think it's a missed opportunity whenever dialogue can happen, constructive dialogue that can help save lives, because that's the...
I was trying to find, just one last thing on this membership stuff. I was trying to find, there's a membership feature where you can give someone a free super chat, like a highlighted message, but I think I need more, either need more members or a bigger channel to do that.
Conversation we want to have, and calling for a ceasefire and ending the bombing. And
with the London thing, I mean, again, that, like, unfortunately that makes sense because London's living costs are so much higher than Northern Ireland.
Restricted military aid to Israel. We want to save lives. We believe no innocent man, woman, or child should be killed.
And to that end, the White House says that it's deploying senior administration officials to Michigan this month to discuss a number of issues with community leaders there, including this war. If the White House does extend an invitation to meet, will you accept it?
You know, for anybody who wants to have a conversation about how we change course, that's the only condition, that there has to be a willingness and an openness to change course on what's unfolding now. Secretary Blinken just last week said that the Middle East is the most volatile it's been in 50 years. And that's that's due in part because of this administration's decision making. So if they're willing to come to the table with an open mind on how to change course, that's a conversation and dialogue that we can partake in.
So you're saying that you really only want to sit down if they say in advance that they are willing to change their strategy. Is that what your position is?
You know, if you had a disagreement with your congressional official and you said you wanted to voice your concerns, and if they said, hey, I'll come listen to you, but I'm never going to change my mind. I think you yourself would say, hey, you know what, let's just pass in this conversation and save both our times. But if there's a willingness and an openness to say, hey...
Wish I said that the other day to a certain somebody, that, you know, if you're going to be dense as hell and waste my time, what's the point?
You in Dearborn, you might know a little something. We come from these Arab countries that everybody keeps talking about online. The largest portion of the city of Dearborn is largely Lebanese immigrants, Palestinian, Yemeni, Syrian, Iraqi. In each one of these countries, we have lived through the first-hand accounts of apartheid, of occupation, of oppression, of bombardment, devastation, and bombing. And so we can speak from a first-hand accounts of what's actually unfolding on the ground.
Which is true. You know, they would know probably a fair bit more than some of the advisors Biden has, especially given how badly Biden's botched this.
Some Michigan Arabs and Muslims have launched a campaign, and they're saying abandon Biden, and they're urging members of their community to show up to the polls but not cast their vote for Biden.
That's very interesting, because if you think about it, normally people just vote for the president and they might not vote down ballot. That's one of the reasons why they push for elections to be held on the same day. So it gives people more, people already there, and they can vote for, councillors and congressional candidates. It's generally there to help them. But what are these people saying is do the opposite: vote down ballot, but don't vote for the president on the top of the ticket.
These efforts are also happening in other key states. This is, as I'm sure you know, going to be a very close election, likely. Do you agree with this strategy? Abandon Biden?
For me, that question has to be put back to the candidate, to President Biden. It's on the candidate. It's his responsibility to earn the trust and respect of the voters. I've run for office before. I've never pointed at the voters of my district and said, you're at fault if I'm not elected.
It's true. Because once again, it's the politicians that fail voters. It's not the other way around.
In fact, it's me as the candidate. It's President Biden as the candidate to put forward a policy platform that is receptive to all of Americans. What we're at...
Oh, that's interesting. So they've made it very easy for people.
Asking for a ceasefire is not something that only the majority of Arab Americans and Muslim Americans support. In fact, over 60% of Americans support a ceasefire. Over 80% of Democrats. And so for me, I would urge President Biden to heed the calls of Americans from coast to coast.
Yeah, I understand. I mean, certainly you want the president to change his position. I think one of the things that, and I know you've gotten a lot of questions about this, people are wondering about realistically, what is the alternative, and what does that alternative mean for the Palestinian people? Does it worry you about what a Trump presidency could mean for those lives that you said earlier? You're concerned about each and every one of the innocent people who shouldn't die being saved.
Absolutely. I think Trump is a threat to American democracy. So the question should stand. What will President Biden do to prevent the unraveling of our American democracy? Why is being aligned with Benjamin Netanyahu and the most right-wing government in Israel's history worth potentially sacrificing our American democracy?
That's beautiful. It's beautiful. She asked him a question, which is a legitimate question, is, if you stay home, it's going to help Trump because it makes Trump's victory more likely. But again, the question is, and as he does, he flips it back and says, why is Biden sacrificing American democracy for Israel, for Netanyahu specifically? That's the key there, because at the end of the day, it's your job to appeal to people and get the vote out. And if you're out here, ignoring voters, the people that you specifically want to reach out to, the ones that you need, then how do you expect it's going to go? They've given you power. They voted you in. I think they had a significant amount of minority voters in the last election. And for you to turn around and basically say, we don't care, and if you don't help us, you're the one helping Trump, you're the one who's going to make it worse. You're vote shaming people, and people don't like that. People don't like to be vote shamed. If anything, you make it more likely for them to go home. You should offer them something. Biden should offer them, some sort of, not a say, but at least a hearing. But more importantly, say, like, we are willing to change our minds on this because we need your help. And the most annoying thing you can do for a politician is to tell them you're going to withhold your vote from them, because that means they have to go out there and win it. And if they have to go out there and win it, they will have to try and appeal to you. And if they don't, that's their fault. It's their fault. That's my whole strategy with Labour. Something people fail to understand. Some people fail to understand anyways, is that when you say you're going to withhold your vote, it means they either sacrifice your vote and they hope they still win, or they're forced to try and appeal to you. And that's something like Hat Boy and others don't understand.
I had a resident that came before a city council meeting who had lost over 80 family members in Gaza. And the question in everybody's mind is, while we send our condolences for your loved ones, we want to know how you're going to vote come November. And I think that's...
100%. Anthony Blinken talked about, I sympathise with their losses. I also have a family. Okay, what are you going to do about it? Nothing. That's the problem.
extremely dehumanizing to think of Palestinian lives only in the context of polls. Arab American lives and Muslim American lives outside of the context of just polls.
Well, yeah, I totally understand that. I think, but really what I'm wondering about is not about the polls, but do you believe genuinely that President Biden, I think the White House would say this, behind the scenes, that they're trying to put pressure on the Israeli government to reduce the loss of innocent lives? Do you believe that at all, or do you think that that's not happening?
I believe those are political talking points. There's never been a war in history in which 80% of the country is absolutely decimated, where 100% of the population has been displaced, and where 50% of all the deaths are children. That has never happened. For us, we want action, not lip service.
That's again, this man's just spitting facts. We want action, not lip service. It's up to Biden to do something and win over these votes.
If President Biden wants to take a firm stance, he can begin by
talking about withholding votes. It looks like the Tories are going up in Wellingborough. I'm not surprised. Like, have you seen the candidate they put up, Peter Bones' girlfriend or whatever? Like, come on.
Restricting military aid to the state of Israel. He could begin by calling a ceasefire, because right now nearly 200 civilians are killed each and every single day. These are tangible steps that can be taken, because what we understand is only diplomatic efforts can lead to lasting peace and justice.
All right, Mayor
Pure facts. The only thing fresher than his arguments are the fade he's got on his head. Honestly, this was magnificent arguing. This was, well, if it's the case that the stakes are this high, surely your boy's got to get up and do something then. Surely your boy should be doing something, rather than blaming the voters, instead of saying,
that's right. Don't blame yourself. Blame me.
Because honestly, this could be Biden's legacy. This could be the thing that he's most known for. It won't be the Inflation Reductionary Act, which is a very good piece of work. It won't be the labour reforms that he's managed to get through. It'd be the fact that not only did he sit and watch whilst an ally committed genocide, he armed them. He kept saying, you need to tone it down, you need to be more careful for civilians, but he still gave them weapons and support. That will be his legacy if he loses the next general election. And that will be his own fault. You can't consistently ask people to come out and vote and then offer them nothing when it comes to election time, especially on an issue as contentious as this. It doesn't make sense. Switching gears to a party that we spoke about a minute ago, I guess. The Labour Party ditching their plan to for their 28 billion green investment, which wasn't even 28 billion, it was just 20 billion. But I say just as in like it's a minute figure.
Voters and tell them that you have decided not to pledge up to.
Again, is the audio okay? Like the video clip audio, because it shows it's low on my end compared to my voice. But if it sounds okay, just let me know, because it is really doing my head in. Because it's not the stuff doesn't make sense. Like the instruments I'm using, they don't make any sense.
28 billion a year, whether immediately or by the end of the next Parliament, into your green investment plan. You can't make that commitment anymore, can you?
Well, the Conservatives...
It's low. Right, okay. That's fine.
Crashed the economy and sent mortgage rates and the cost of government borrowing soaring.
How's that? 'Cause that sounds way louder in my ears. How's that?
And that does change what will be possible for an incoming Labour government. But there's going to be at least one more budget.
Okay, that's fine. Let me know if my voice is loud in comparison, like if it's loud enough, because this is how loud, around how loud I'm going to speak in general.
On March the 6th, possibly another one later in the year, before we get those final numbers of what I hope an incoming Labour government, if we win the election, would inherit.
I understand that you want to wait for the next fiscal event or events, but it's pretty clear to me that up to 28 billion a year into green investment will not be Labour policy in its current form at the next general election. That's fair, isn't it? That's where you're at.
What people need to know is that the fiscal rules are the most important thing for me.
My question is, given what's happened to public finances, you're saying now that you are backing off from that commitment of up to 28 billion by the end of the next Parliament. That's pretty clear, isn't it?
What people can hear loud and clear is that all of our policies will be fully costed, fully funded and subject to the fiscal rules.
I think what people can hear is you're not answering the question.
Well, all of our policies have got to ensure that debt is falling as a share of GDP and that we're not borrowing for day-to-day spending. But there will be at least one more fiscal event, possibly two, before the next general election.
Will you give an update on this after the budget?
Well, of course we will update people on our thinking of this, but as I say...
After the budget?
Well, we will in our own time.
Because you're being smashed up about this.
Well, you know...
You are being smashed up by the Conservatives. They're undoing all your good work.
They're not being smashed up. They're allowing themselves to be smashed up. They're just eating jabs. You know, the one thing I've noticed from Starmer and the Labour Party is they just love eating jabs, honestly, getting punched up.
Rebuilding trust by hitting you around the head with this number You must wince at Prime Minister's questions.
We're at our business conference today, where there are 400 businesses here, another 200 joining us this evening. The people in the room today can see that the Labour Party has changed, that it is now only Labour that is a pro-business party in Britain today, and we're increasingly getting backing from business because they can see that our...
Again, getting backing from business, I mean, it depends on what business wants. That's the key question.
Sums add up, and we've got policies and plans to grow our economy.
The Conservatives keep saying time and again that the 28 billion figure means that you're going to end up taxing Britons more. It proves Labour cannot be trusted on the economy.
Again, you know, if that money gets invested and it gives the economy growth, we won't be taxing Britons more. Cause, you know, we won't have to because the economy will grow. Like, it doesn't make sense.
It's a problem for you, isn't it?
Well, at the conference today, I
mean, look how weak she is in this interview, which is, you know, not the hardest questions, which is just about what are you going to do, what are your fiscal policies, and it's just she just doesn't know what to say because, you know, borrowing, they've turned borrowing into a bad word, and now they've boxed themselves in, so they can't borrow more. Because they know what they've done. They've salted the ground for that, right? So are they going to tax more? They could raise capital gains tax, for example, get a tax on the biggest earners. They could add more tax bands like they did in Scotland. They said they're not going to increase taxes. So what are they going to do? Because look at all of this framing that they've done now, all of this stuff they're setting up, right? For them to magically throw away the fiscal rules whilst they're in government about, you know, wanting to do this, right? This is the key here. You know, she says, I will never spend what we cannot afford. I will introduce a new set of fiscal rules. These rules apply to every decision. We will not borrow to fund day-to-day spending. So right now, we are borrowing to fund day-to-day spending because the government is in deficit, right? So how is she going to get rid of the deficit? God knows how she's going to manage that one, okay? God knows how she's going to manage that one. We will reduce debt as a share of GDP, as a share of the economy. So what that means is it's a ratio. It's a ratio, okay? So debt to GDP is a ratio. So you either grow the economy, so the ratio on one side goes up, or you lower the debt, so the ratio on the other side goes down. That's the only way you can really do it, right? So if Labour aren't going to increase taxes and they're not going to borrow more, how are they going to grow the economy? How will they reduce our debt to GDP? How are they going to do it? What's the magic money tree? Where's the magic growth tree? That's what we need to see. And that's what I've been very clear on. This is very frustrating and very stupid. This is what No Justice has been very clear on, how stupid this is. This is what other economists, actual economists, have said. You know, I think people like Stephanie Kelton have very much criticised the stuff that Rachel Reeves has said. Actual economist Stephanie Kelton, published economist Stephanie Kelton, that what I'm talking about here, actively criticised what Rachel Reeves has said. So for people like Bowler Hatman and the others to say, no, Labour will just get rid of all this stuff. Why would you sow the ground like this? And the argument of they need to bomb-proof the manifesto. I mean, if they were going to do a bomb-proof manifesto, they should never have promised to do £28 billion worth of borrowing. They should never have said that. But now they've created a rod for their own back, because not only did they set up a figure by saying, like, we're going to borrow 28 billion a year for green investment, then they changed to, we're going to ramp up to 28 billion over the whole parliament. Now they're saying we ain't doing 28 billion, dog. And it gets worse. It actually does get worse. This from Reeves saying we must grow the economy if we're going to both improve living standards and have the money to invest in our public services. How are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? No, I disagree with Farouk here when he says, you know, single market tax receipts. That's fine, but we're not rejoining the single market. That's not going to happen. Okay, I've gone over that. I've had that argument. This is Jonathan Reynolds.
Let's move on to a different pledge then. This is about the pledge to invest eye-watering sums, these £28 billion a year in green technologies. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that was a pledge, but it's now not a pledge.
Well, we are absolutely committed to greater public investment.
Okay, let me interrupt you there. Is it a pledge or is it not a pledge? Can you use the word pledge?
The pledge is for public investment. The overall amount of spending is determined by our fiscal rules and the health of the economy. And of course, it takes into account what the government are already spending. It's not a sum of money you just put on top of what is already taking place. Now, the ambition is there for that level to be sufficient to make that transition one that works for the UK. I can't pledge we'll hit that particular level because...
So they said they're going to do it. Now they're saying they're not going to do it.
The health of the economy is obviously one of the driving factors around
Can I be
that.
clear, though, Jonathan Reynolds? A pledge is a pledge, isn't it? I think, you did make that pledge. 2021, I thought Labour made that pledge. So it's a bit like you're picking the moment. If it's a pledge before, then it remains a pledge. But you're just saying, well, when it suits you, you'll just say, well, it wasn't really a pledge.
No, I think people recognise that you have to take into account where the economy is at. We've obviously had a lot of changes of Prime Minister since that initial announcement. The cost of borrowing is different. The spending plans of the government are different. Now, if you're in opposition, you have to take that into account. It's a little bit frustrating at times, but that is the reality. And what we've always said is we've got to never again see the kind of disgraceful budget we saw when Liz Truss was briefed.
But again, the reason the market tanked was because Liz Truss said she's going to grow the economy via tax cuts. That's what she said. That's why the economy tanked. We know this. We saw it. We lived it. When Rishi Sunak borrowed £37 billion for test and trace, right? The markets didn't bat an eye.
Prime Minister, where that financial stability of the country was put at risk, and therefore the country spent a lot more money, but it spent it on things like debt interest and people's mortgages rising. So we're never going to do that. We've got our clear ambition on public investment. That's how we'll get the electric vehicle battery factories, the green steel, the warm home.
Again, with the car battery factories, like what's he saying about grow the economy? Let's see.
Like debt interest and people's mortgages rising. So we're never going to do that. We've got our clear ambition on public investment. That's how...
Clear ambition on what? No, you don't.
We'll get the electric vehicle battery factories, the green...
Again, what are these? Who's going to buy these batteries from us? Because again, like car manufacturing is moving to the EU.
Green steel, the warm...
It's moved, a lot of it's moved. The OEMs have moved.
Homes, the lower energy bills that we need. But that level of spending, that total amount of spending, that has to be determined by how strong the economy is and how that can be done. And that is really at the heart of when we say fiscal discipline and the fiscal rules govern that decision.
So all of this stuff will be governed by the fiscal rules. All of this will be governed by the idea to lower our debt to GDP ratio. So if it doesn't lower the debt to GDP ratio, it's not going to happen. And so because Labour said we're going to do these plans very late into the Parliament, they're not going to be able to do it because of the fact that it's not going to lower our debt to GDP ratio. So if that's Labour's main goal, they're going to have to invest big early in order to get the benefits as soon as possible. The problem is that Starmer, I think, said on record that he's, spending potentially is going to go down in his first couple of years in government. So how is he going to do it? This is what I mean, guys. How are they going to square the circle? And this is why Bowler Hatman struggled so much yesterday, because of the fact that this is impossible. Under the fiscal rules they've set out, it is impossible to do the things that they are saying they will do. So it's either the fact that they will stick to the fiscal rules and they will not achieve a lot of the policy goals they are looking to achieve, or they're going to throw out the fiscal rules, have lied in their manifesto, lied consistently in the media, and then they're going to get to power and hopefully do the right things. I would rather they broke the fiscal rules pledge once they're into power and actually did some actually good investment. But if they didn't, that wouldn't surprise me. And I wonder what guys like him will say if Labour do stick to their fiscal rules, because I guarantee you, 5 years' time, when there's another election potentially, his main argument is going to be vote Labour to keep the Tories up. That's all he's going to say, guys. That's what those guys are going to say. So yeah, there's that. Car battery will never come to the UK unless we are part of the EU. No, you know what it is? Car battery, it could come to the UK. We're going to have to offer fat subsidies. I'm talking stacks. That's what I'm saying. We're going to have to offer them a ridiculous amount of money. More from Reeves.
You had no intention of reinstating a banker's bonus, a cap on bankers' bonuses, and yet 3 months ago you tweeted, today in the midst of the cost of living crisis, the government is scrapping a cap on bankers' bonuses. It tells you everything you need to know about this government. How can the people here trust your pledges when you can change your tune about something you seem to care about so much so quickly?
So when the government scrapped the bank bonus tax, we didn't feel that that was the right priority in that budget. But what I hear loud and clear from business, that what it will...
So what I hear from the people who are donating to the party is...
will take to get them to invest in Britain is stability. And the last thing we need is more chopping and changing. And the truth...
That's what I mean. They need stability. Last thing they need is more chopping and changing, right? So it means you're not going to do a lot, are you? If you want things to be stable, things to be as the Tories left it, that means you're not going to do a lot.
Is that in financial services there are a lot more rules and regulations and safeguards in place than there were before the financial crisis.
But there's still, especially with them deregulating Solvency II, there is still a strong chance of a financial crisis. Given what we saw with the bond market, there was literally, we had a crisis 2 years ago. Or was it a year ago? We had the bond market crisis. Fairly recently. It wasn't to do with the bankers, sure, but the idea that the rules and regulations are strong enough to avert a financial crash, like, we lived through it. The Bank of England essentially saved us with that one, because they were buying up the bonds, because no one else was. And you almost had margin calls, you almost had pension funds going bankrupt. Like, this idea that we have strong financial rules, like, it almost all fell apart because these pension funds are massively over-leveraged. Like, guys, please, what was she talking about here? We have strong enough rules. We literally went through... They talk about the trust budget all the time. So this idea that the financial rules are strong enough is garbage.
So, for example, banks have to put aside much more capital than they did before 2008.
I suppose there are two different things, actually. We're talking about pension funds versus banks, but, for her to argue that the financial rules are strong enough, they're really not.
And there are much stronger rules about clawing back bankers' bonuses. So we didn't think it was the right priority. It wouldn't have been my number one priority in that budget. But the chopping and changing has got to end if we're going to give...
It must be all of those nice meetings she's having with... Stephen Flynn was gnarly on it, honestly. Like, that guy just... That Labour just gave him so many openings. In Scotland, I can't see Labour doing well. There's more I want to discuss.
£28 billion for green investments. Now it's an ambition, not a pledge. Just 3 months ago, when the Conservatives said they were scrapping caps on bankers' bonuses, you tweeted, quote, "It tells you everything you need to know about this government." Now you seem to agree with this government. Yes or no, can you at least appreciate why the one thing that keeps on coming up again, time and time again, in focus groups is your party, your leadership, doesn't seem to know what they stand for. You seem to be U-turning all over the shop.
My number one commitment is to fiscal and economic stability, and I won't do anything that plays fast and loose with the public finances, because when you do so, you play fast and loose with family finances and create uncertainty for businesses as well. 2.5 years ago, we had not had the mini budget. Interest rates were at 0.1%. The bank base rate now is at 5.25%. The servicing of government debt, the interest on government debt, is significantly higher than it was. And so, of course, we have to adjust our plans in accordance to the circumstances that what we will inherit.
It is not an issue to her, no. Going back on pledge is not an issue.
But the thing that I can absolutely guarantee to voters and to businesses too is that economic stability, financial stability will always come first, and that's what you get with Labour, very different from the Conservatives who have played fast and loose with our public finances.
Is that a yes or a no?
The thing that we will guarantee and that voters can have absolute certainty on is that everything will be done according to our fiscal rules.
But Paula Hatman said you're going to throw away the fiscal rules after the election. Was Bowler Hatman lying, or are you lying now? Is someone lying here? Or maybe it's just smart. It's just a deception. It's a smokescreen. Maybe the fiscal rules is just a smoke bomb. More from this. This framing here from Kay Burley was beautiful.
So just to clarify, Labour's happy to cap child benefit but not bankers' bonuses?
Well, I would not make that comparison.
I would. I don't like the way you framed that question. That's basically what he said.
The point around this is not about limiting. The bankers' bonus policy was never about how much people are paid. It's the structure. So basically, what was previously bonus went into basic pay. So I just want to be clear, this is not about people saying bankers should earn more. That's not our view.
But you're capping child benefit, but not bankers' bonuses. Bottom line.
Look, there are lots of things in the social security system I would like to see changed. The health of the economy at the minute isn't one that you can make these kind of pledges on because, frankly, the strain that system is under is too great. What you have to do is what we're doing today, which is how can you grow the British economy? How can you drive up business investment, stronger growth, stronger productivity? How can you make the net zero transition?
Rachel Reeves talked about how for every £1 the government, the Labour Party, are going to look to spend on like infrastructure projects and stuff, they'll get £3 back from the private sector. So surely us spending 28 billion on kind of green energy will generate almost 100 billion in returns, potentially, not too far from there. So I just don't get it, guys.
Work for working people. All of this requires a strong.
Yeah, sure. It's not a false equivalence in terms of.
So just to clarify,
it's not a false equivalence in terms of saying you're going to punish the most marginalised in society, and essentially give a tax break to the best off in society, the most well off in society, which are the bankers who earn these bonuses. So I don't think it's a false equivalency, but I think it's a really punishing question for Labour. This from Rayner. Says Labour wants to spend 28 billion on investment but won't be bound by an arbitrary number. If that's the case, why did you set an arbitrary number? Why did you say we're going to spend 28 billion? It don't make sense. You guys literally said you're going to spend 28 billion a year on green energy. Then you change it to 28 billion. There goes, look, while the party would like to spend 28 billion a year on green investment, it would not be bound by an arbitrary number, despite the fact that they're the ones who set the arbitrary number. This is beyond parody. This is actually beyond parody. She says it's not just about throwing a figure out there willy-nilly and saying we'll just put that in. It's got to be part of applying to our fiscal rules. This is about identifying where that money will be spent and when and how quickly can we get that off the ground in a sustainable way to secure public money and secure that the 3 times the amount of private investment. So this is the bit I was talking about there. So essentially what they're saying is every pound they're going to spend, if it they want it to generate 3 times that amount in private investment. So if it doesn't do it, are they going to spend the money? So for example, increasing child benefits is not going to bring private investment. That's probably why they're not going to. That's why they're going to keep the child benefit cap. She says they are the rules we are applying to that money. Therefore, it's arbitrary to say we think It's arbitrary to say, well, every year it'll be 28 billion by immediately the first day. But literally, you guys, first you said that Labour are going to look to spend around 28 billion, I think, a year on green energy. Then you changed it 28 billion over the Parliament, and no one is saying spend 28 billion on the first day. Like, she's strawmanning people's arguments. Her and Bola Hatman will get along quite well because both of them don't understand the arguments that are being put to them. Asked again whether the party was abandoning the 28 billion target tried. No, we're saying we want to ramp up to 28 billion, which is what they moved to before, but we're just not going to throw money out there. The fiscal rules that Rachel Reeves has applied to that money is that it has to be about investment in jobs in the future as part of our industrial strategy. So there you go. These are the fiscal rules that, Bola Hatman said that they're just going to throw away. Even though here we have, we are potentially within about 6-7 months of an election, right? Depending on when you think it's going to be, I think Labour thinks it's going to be in May. So we are, 5 months? What was it? Between February, March, April, May. We're 4 months, potentially, to a general election, right? And this lot are still talking about the fiscal rules and how they're cutting down on this spending, quote, bomb-proofing the manifesto. And Bola Hatman and these other lot in the Labour people are saying, yeah, no, they're saying all this stuff and they're not going to do it. It's mad. It's mad. This is actual insanity we're looking at. This is literally her saying, right, we're only going to spend, this is it, look. This is it. She says, quote, this is Rayner saying this. This is about identifying where that money will be spent and when and how quickly can we get that off the ground in a sustainable way to secure public money and secure that 3 times the amount of private investment, end quote. 3 times the amount in private investment. 3 times. That's what I'm saying, 3 times. So when it comes to housing development, Labour said they're not going to put any money in, okay? But when it comes to car battery manufacturing, excuse me, when it comes to manufacturing car batteries, they said they're going to set some money to, essentially to help these companies out to start them off, I think. But if it doesn't generate 3 times the amount of investment in the private sector, it's not going to happen. And what do we know about these companies? Britishvolt required huge amounts of subsidies in order to keep working, and in the end, it didn't. So how is that going to work? These companies don't just require seed money. They require massive amounts of subsidies to be profitable. This is nuts. This is absolutely nuts. Geez, we got a Kai in the chat. HK gone for Kai. You respect it. We respect Kai in this house. This is nuts, guys. I literally said that about the fiscal rules, right? I've literally said this about the fiscal rules, and these people had the audacity to say, no, they're going to LeBron that out of the window. It's got scope. There's grey area here. Literally no grey area. Look, said it here. How quickly can we get it off the ground in a sustainable way to secure the public money and secure 3 times the amount of private investment? There is. Right there. That's what she said. God. There's more here from Bloomberg, Alex Wickham, saying Labour unity creaks over the 28 billion tax bankers bonuses. 2 key strains in the shadow cabinet on fiscal discipline versus the need to stand for something. Between dithering Starmer Reeves, senior aides on not sorting 28 billion out sooner. It was gonna be a problem. The media are always gonna ask you how you're gonna pay for it and all this stuff, right? And because Labour had such an easy time for so long, they didn't realise it was iceberg dead ahead, and now they've hit the iceberg. Now they're in trouble, especially given the initial statement Starmer made over Gaza. When he was asked about cutting off food, cutting off water, he said, "I think Israel do have that right." And then when asked about Muslim councillors leaving the Labour Party, apparently a senior Labour source said, "Labour, we're just shaking off the fleas, we're shaking off the parasites, effectively." And now we find out that Labour are doing more outreach to Muslim voters because they're scared they might lose them. No, this lot will hit an iceberg. These lot have no pre-planning. They are very similar to Boris Johnson's Conservative Party. They will hit iceberg after iceberg after iceberg and not realise where they keep going wrong. When it comes to car battery factories, you need orders to go with it. Yes, 100%. You also need more manufacturing nearby. The closer the car manufacturers are to the battery plants, the less expensive the batteries are because of transport. So yeah, madness. It's a bit more. This from Clive Lewis. Clive Lewis, the man I wish who was in charge of the Labour Party. Clive Lewis, pro-proportional representation, pro-green energy spending. The hero we didn't deserve, but the one we needed. Honestly, because he would have done a better job. He would have done so much better. And he's been a bit critical of the Labour front bench. He says instead of backing down, it's time for Labour to face down the Tories and win the case for public investment in the climate transition of 28 billion and beyond. He said the Conservative failure on public investment and planning is writ large across the country. Just look at the steelworks and the community of Port Talbot, which has been absolutely decimated by the Tories. They face the collapse of their livelihood due to the government failure to plan for or invest in the future of UK steel. In this context, Labour should be boldly setting out its vision in government. The vision about judicious public investment will future-proof industry, revive our economy, make our homes, workplaces, communities more pleasant and more pleasant places to be. Labour's so-called fiscal rules, like the pledge to reduce debt as a percentage of our GDP by the end of next Parliament, are no excuse. These are political choices. They are no match for the laws of nature, which dictate that burning fossil fuels disrupts our stable climate. We are only at the start of an unprecedented disruption and uncertainty, ending the age of fossil fuels. And he goes on for a while here. When I saw this thread initially, it was only like 4 tweets. I probably didn't scroll down far enough. But point being is this is the key here. He's unhappy about the direction they've gone in. Gary Lineker saying, talking about this, no one seems to care about our children's future. There are people clowning him because of what he said about Corbyn, but at least he's being vocal on it. But, if anyone accuses Gary Lineker of supporting the Tories, they've absolutely lost their minds. For anyone, maybe certain Labour social people should be telling Gary Lineker, Gary, mate, you don't get it. It's about a smokescreen. Labour got to win, so then they can do these policies that they're saying they're specifically not going to do. Do you see why these people are exhausting to me? Labour can say, we're not going to do that policy. And these people turn around and say to you, Labour are going to do that policy. Mad. And here he is. Here is one such person, right, saying, Ian Dunn, frustrated and disappointed by Labour provocation on the 28 billion pledge. But I'm not sure what FWIW means. If anyone in chat knows, let me know. He says, I don't think it's necessarily a significant reflection of what they'll be like in power. It's a result of a small target election strategy where any Tory dividing line is neutralised. Once in power, that strategy ends. The spotlight on where money is coming from applies to oppositions much more than it does governments. Fiscal headroom will go towards a net zero. Fiscal headroom is when, for 1 year you kind of run more money than you have more money than you thought you did. There was a thing where I think the government did, it's not a surplus we ran, but we had 20 billion or something or so more than we thought we would have, and I think the government were going to put that towards tax cuts. But anyways, fiscal headroom will go towards net zero. So that's only if you create that kind of space to do it. With fairly easy, i.e. on a fairly easy investment on definitions of, what does that mean? Fairly easy, i.e. on definitions of investment. This man's shorthand is criminal. He says, what concerns me is that Labour is leaving itself with no argument at all about what it is for. It is failing to send a message to the Treasury and secure a mandate for big initiative on decarbonisation. Why would the Treasury, for what it's worth, okay, why would the Treasury care about what Labour are going to do on decarbonisation? The current Treasury, it's run by Tories. So that doesn't even make sense. But when we look at this, right, he's saying, oh yeah, Labour are playing the game. They're doing what they need to do to win, This man's nuts. He's nuts. The spotlight is where the money's coming from applies to oppositions much more than it does governments. Does it, though? Does it? Because Jeremy Hunt has been plagued around questions around a potential tax cut, and they kept asking, where are you going to get the money from? Where are you going to get the money from? The IMF said, don't do a tax cut. The Tories been briefing for ages about cutting taxes somewhere, but every time the media keep asking, where are you going to get the money from? And all the Tories climb up about it. In fact, we've got some clips about that, I think, in a bit. But this is the cope. This is the cope right here, where they'll say stuff like, don't worry, guys, they're just doing what they have to do to win. I'm mad. Oh, it's madness. This is the cope right here. This is the cope, and he gets pieced up a bit in the comments. Once in power, the strategy ends. This was revealed to me in a dream. There's like a person who asked the source, and he goes, "This was revealed to me in a dream." Honestly, beautiful. Or in other words,
my source is that I made it the fuck up.
There's no better use of this clip than on these people. Genuinely. We go to Ed Davey apologising over the post office scandal, which I found quite interesting. He's finally decided to apologise. They did say that, yeah, Labour painted themselves into a corner, as in 97, by promising to follow the Conservatives' rules on spending for the first 2 years. Yes, they did say that, and I think they did actually follow the Conservative spending plans for the first 2 years.
Post Office Minister, 11 days in, I sent a letter to Alan Bates saying I didn't want to meet him because government owned the Post Office, didn't run it. That obviously annoyed him, quite understandably, and it took me 5 months to meet him. I wish I'd met him earlier. And I'm particularly apologising because when I listened to him, a very reasonable man, and his concerns, particularly about Horizon computer system, and I put his concerns to the Post Office, I didn't uncover their lies. And their lies...
It's kind of, I think when you consistently say I regret, and you keep saying I, it kind of does make it about yourself a little bit. But I suppose it's an apology he's making about his role in what happened.
Quite profound, particularly on the Horizon computer system. What worried Mr. Bates was that
and Mr. Bates was offered 1/6 of the compensation that I think he should have gotten, or something like that. He was in the news fairly recently about it, and he declined the compensation that was offered to him fairly recently. And it's shameful that whatever they've had to pay back, it should be that and more, way more. They should be paid back for what they've lost. They should be given a significant amount of compensation. Significant.
The postmaster they were told the subpostmaster was the only person who...
He was offered, that guy Bates was offered 1/6 of the amount of compensation he should have received, I think. I need to check what the metrics were, but he was offered a pitiful amount compared to what he should have got.
Who could enter their budget, their financial system on the computer. And there was no possibility of remote access. And Mr. Bates was questioning that. And so I questioned the post office on that and said, look, is there remote access? Are there any bugs in the system? Is it robust? And I was told categorically that it had been independently assured there was no remote access. Now, we subsequently learn, I mean, years later...
Ed Davey is not solely responsible for the post office scandal, Suzanne. I think that's grossly unfair. I would say that's very, very unfair. Andy Burnham had a really interesting clip about the tainted blood scandal, where I think he was in charge of health, and he said, like, when he had spoke to his officials, when he spoke to people in the office and said, look, what the hell's going on? What's going on here? They would categorically tell him, no, nothing is happening. And I think it's up to ministers, and ministers should have to go outside of the office, go outside of their staff, and actually speak to the people affected by this, and seek what the hell's going on, because they were accused of lying to the post office, and I think that's a big failure on the part of what's his face, David Davies. But this failure goes back to I think the Labour Party, really, when they allowed the system to be implemented, because it was buggy as hell. But the Labour Party were also lied to. I think I want to be careful here, because I can't remember which Labour advisor told Tony Blair, no, the system was fine, and that's when the rollout happened. It's just not good.
That was a complete and utter lie.
I'm saying that's the impression the media just, okay. I mean, to be fair, he's a perfect scapegoat. Why? Because he was the minister near enough the time, and he's the leader. He's currently the leader of a party. So that makes the Lib Dems look even worse. That they've elected a guy who was in charge of one of the biggest scandals, one of the biggest scandals of the last kind of 20 odd years. Outside of COVID and the financial crash and Brexit, it's probably in the top 10 easily. Iraq War, obviously.
And they knew it. There was a report from Ernst & Young in 2011, while I was the minister, that the post office received saying there was remote access. So they lied to me. And what I'm apologising for is not seeing through those lies. I mean,
but if you saw that report in 2011, then you really should have done more. Because, as soon as you see through the first lie, that indicates to you that these people cannot be trusted, and that's when you have to do more digging, especially when you have people who use these systems, the people in the post office who use this and said, look, something's wrong here.
The post office kept lying to other ministers, to the judges, to courts.
Perjury.
And that lie was only finally exposed when an insider from Fujitsu blew the whistle, and we had a BBC panorama in August 2015, then we had the High Court in 2019.
So this would have been, I think the panorama would have been after the 2015 election. Or in around that time anyways.
But I feel I should apologise for not seeing through those lies, though I have to say it would have been pretty tough.
Yeah, of course, and yet it's now the 1st of February 2024, and you've referred back to various milestones in this saga at which that apology probably became necessary, or at least desirable, the latest of which would probably be the 1st of January, when Mr. Bates versus the Post Office began to be broadcast on ITV to extraordinary effect, as I think everybody knows. So why has it taken you so long?
Well, I mean, the story is horrendous. I watched the ITV drama, and you can't be anything other but distressed for the hundreds, maybe even thousands of postmasters who were affected. And I said very early on that I regret it. I probably should have said much earlier. Except that I should have said sorry earlier.
Bear with me a second. I'm just going to bring this up on screen. Yeah, this is from a couple of days ago. So the actor they got for him is actually really close. It's very accurate. Alan Bates will reject the government's post office compensation, a figure he says is only about a sixth of what was requested. The former post office operator, whose story was the inspiration of the ITV drama, reportedly described the package as cruel and derisory. The scandal, frequently described as the most widespread miscarriage of justice in UK history, resulted from 1999 Blair to 2015. I didn't hear that. What? Something's Going On. That's a great song, to be fair. Something's Going On by Plain White T's, I think it's called. But yeah, after being forced to stop running his post office in 2003, Bates spearheaded a fight for justice more than 2 decades later. 20 years. 2003. I might have still been in primary school. This is going on. He goes, full and fair might be His Majesty's government's interpretation, but in reality the offer is derisory. It's just a terrible way to treat human beings, and I have heard from several sub-postmasters who received similarly derisory offers, and this is from the government. Bearing in mind, my solicitors engaged forensic accountants to prepare my claim in accordance with... So essentially, his lawyers paid through the nose. He paid through the nose for the support he got to make this claim. You're talking not just lawyers' time, which is a lot. You're talking accountants and probably other tech experts as well, in order to get this over the line. What does he say here? It now seems we have to spend hours and hours over weeks and months with government-appointed lawyers at who knows what cost just to point out these legal principles to them, but to them it might be just a good earner. But to be fair, the lawyer always works on behalf of the client, especially a client as rich as the government is. So if the government want to drag this out, they will. Primary school. I think I was in primary school in 2003. I think I was. It said its annual reports covering the end of March that it was now holding 244 million for compensation related to overturned convictions, down from 487 million a year ago, after 38% of appeals against convictions were either turned down or withdrawn unsuccessful. Bates said, I've been in a long queue with all the others in the scheme, but if my case is an example of the way I think they are going to treat all the cases, we might as well start looking at a legal action again and let the judiciary decide, which is probably going to be the best thing to do. Probably going to be the best thing to do. Let the courts decide it, because this lot here are a bunch of frauds. Honestly, they will not do it. Maybe this is one of the things where an incoming Labour government will do the right thing, but then maybe it'll be subject to Rachel Reeves' fiscal rules. Who knows? But youngest is born in 2000. All right, okay, yeah. I'm not gonna start dissing the chat for being old. Okay, it happens. Each day at the High Court costs £100,000 to £200,000 just for his side. Okay, I see. Well, if it goes back to court and they do a GoFundMe, honestly, it's probably one I'd donate to, because honestly, what they have been through is just dystopian. It's so dystopian to use a phrase that someone abuses. It's so dystopian. This Brexiteers now versus then.
Talk to me about Brexit. I thought Brexit was done.
Yes, 4 years ago we left the EU. Absolutely.
So what's happening?
You can abandon us when you get the younger audience. That's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Even though I've got fire memes, I've got great references, stuff like that. I should have played this one for Bowler Hatman, really.
I fail to see the logic here. Senate. The price to pay for power?
Yeah, no, I can...
Start praying, boy! Ah!
I can start praying for a new audience or a younger audience, but it's not going to happen, because some people do this, do media work for the wrong reasons, but I do it because of...
I'm talking ideals.
Talking ideals, that's why I do this, for ideals. So many lives shattered and some lost because it's better to stick your head in the sand. Honestly, it really is. It really is to some people. Like, they were happily... Imagine they dealt with this at the time. And they said that when the sub-postmaster said, look, we didn't do this. This was not us. And the government said, we're going to look into this right now. And see what the hell's going on. They could have diagnosed this so quickly, and the easiest way to deal with a problem is acknowledgement and then containment. These are the two most effective things you can do. Let's play this clip, sorry.
Do you mean the plant checks?
Yes.
Yeah. One of the points about leaving the single market is that there is increased checks at the borders because you're not in the single market. That's absolutely known about ever since 2016, when the decision to leave the EU was made. Still trading enormous amounts with the EU, we have opened up other opportunities for UK businesses, exports and imports too.
Yeah, but the government has acknowledged that it's going to cost businesses in the UK an extra £330 million a year.
Businesses always face the cost of doing business. Businesses knew at the time of Brexit that in leaving the European single market, there would be additional checks at the border because, by definition, we were no longer in that single market. There was no surprise about that.
You're claiming that we could leave the EU, which will mean, because you've made a big song and dance about it, ending free movement of peoples. That would not apply to that.
The worst thing is, she's not my local MP, but she's pretty close to where I am.
Kingdom, but we would still access the single market on the same basis as we do now.
We would continue to trade tariff-free because it's in their interest, even more than ours. And just to be clear...
So, let me try and get you to be clear, because it's interesting. On the same basis as now. We would trade on the same basis.
It will
is
be
your claim.
Absolutely in their interests, even more than ours. We have a big deficit with the European Union. And let's be clear, the EU has some modest free trade agreements with the rest of the world, not nearly as many as Switzerland, but they do have some free trade agreements. Those countries trade tariff-free with the EU, and they do not have free movement.
We went from all of this to businesses know the costs. They went for that Rick Astley, you know the costs, and so do I. Honestly, it's just embarrassing. There's a lot more here, actually. This from Laura Trott on taxes. I feel like it's rough for Laura Trott because this is the second time in as many weeks. There's a clip of her just being really stupid on TV, on radio.
Well, listeners do know about.
She has a rough time on LBC.
Us is that we want to cut taxes, but we will only do it in a sustainable and responsible way.
You want to cut taxes. This is a government that was the highest tax in 70 years, Laura Trott. So you go a strange way about it.
No, because we're responsible, Nick. But let me just explain, because, and I think we've had this conversation before. You know, we spent.
I feel like they have.
£400 billion during COVID. We spent £100 billion on protecting people's energy prices during.
I mean, you did this. Okay, 400 million pounds on COVID, right? You wasted a significant amount of that. You wasted billions of that, right? Not Laura Trott, please. Don't play. Sorry, guys. Sorry, it's Laura Trott again. You wasted a significant amount of the COVID funds. With the energy costs, you did it in the dumbest way, because you could have done a windfall tax and clawed some of that money back, at least. At the least, you could have done so. So the argument of, the energy costs, we need to pay people back. No.
The energy crisis caused by Putin, right? I think those were the right decisions. We've got to pay.
Rick Astley's 57, yeah, but he's got one of the most iconic songs in the world.
Pay that back. And a Conservative government will.
He's got one of the most iconic songs on the internet.
Always be responsible with people's finances, and so we took some difficult decisions.
She talks very fast.
I'm not trying to step away. I'm not. Yes, but
that is true. So true. You know, Michelle Moan, PPE, MedPro, and the other ones. You know, it's so true, Suzanne.
By the way, I should also point out that is an overall figure. Where we have put those taxes are on people.
I can't lie, guys. I'm shattered. I've got to do a D&D campaign later, and then I've got to be up early to play badminton. It's gonna be a rough weekend for you, boy.
Who can bear it the most? You know,
this is not helping. Excuse me. I'm gonna have to go to the shop and get some chocolate or something, because this interview is so boring. She's just reading stuff off a paper. It feels like that's probably why she's speaking so fast.
For people on the lowest incomes, their taxes are going down, but that's they've gone down by £1,000.
When did they go down by £1,000? The only thing we've seen is a national insurance cut, but that means de facto you're still paying more in tax because you haven't raised the tax threshold. So I don't know what she's talking about.
Since 2010, but
since 2010, okay. So the most you've gotten is the lowest earners are paying £1,000 less tax than in 2014. That's the best you have? Really, is this the best? This is the best you have? This is the best you have?
You know, I'm not stepping away from the fact that we have taken some difficult decisions, but
you made some dumb decisions.
Because of those decisions, the economy's turning a corner, which is why.
Is it? Because I don't think we're predicted to have much growth, and the IMF said, don't be thinking of doing a tax cut. The IMF told us, look, don't even think about it. The IMF, I think we've got this clip already. The IMF said, don't do it. So what are you talking about?
We can take these steps to start.
National insurance is technically a tax, to be fair. National insurance is a tax. It's framed as not a tax, but national insurance is a tax. It's a tax.
Bringing the tax burden down.
When your senior colleague Sir David Davis,
I can't lie, I've run on caffeine for so long now,
tells LBC that the IMF's recommendation that Britain can't afford tax cuts, they should, quotes, get lost. Is he right?
Yeah, they're a bunch of international monetary fund. Why are a bunch of internationalists telling us what to do, huh? We only care about the NMF, the National Monetary Fund. That's who we only care about their opinions. The NMF, not the IMF.
What the IMF are talking about was the balance of public spending versus tax cuts. And this is a really important debate that we should be having in this country, because, our plans are for for public spending to go up by, it's been 3% over this
Try crack or crystal meth. No, I'm good, bro.
Parliament. It'll be 1% beyond that, up to 2020, go up by, we should be having in this country, because our plans are for public spending to go up by, it's been 3% over this Parliament, it'll be 1% beyond that.
So it's going to be significantly lower than inflation. You're going to increase public spending, but it's going to be significantly lower than inflation. How's that going to help?
To 2028-29. And that will involve public spending going up by 85 billion compared
they throw the big figure up, but when you see it's just by 3%, it doesn't mean much, does it?
To 2019. Now, we think that is a responsible way to grow public spending, to make sure we're spending on public services, but that we're also able to deliver the tax cuts that we want to, because...
What the tax cuts are, it's just sugar. It's just giving the voters pure sugar. That's all it is. Because when you don't invest in public services, sometimes they're going to pay out of pocket for stuff. There are a lot more claims going in now against councils over potholes. So you can give people the tax cuts, sure, but if you're not funding councils properly, councils are going to have to pay through the nose for pothole damage. Who's going to pay for the councils to pay out that money? The taxpayer. When you have to go private to get routine operations done, who's paying that money? The taxpayer. This is absolutely insane. I'm proud of cutting back from 6 pots of coffee down to 3 in the last year. Wow, 6 pots of coffee in a year. That's not bad. Have a tenner for some Pro Plus. What's that? Painkillers. What's Pro Plus? Oops, almost typed in propane. Oops. Pro Plus. It's caffeine tablets. Okay. Bring back Liz. Thank you for the super chat, Mithril. Bring back Liz. Let's grow that. You don't say grow that cake. Don't say that. That means something else. And then he crapped himself when he saw how much public transport costs. Yeah, honestly, it's bad. Yeah, don't visit the UK. Honestly, it's not worth it. Scotland is nice actually. Scotland, I think Cornwall is okay. That's about it. I'm planning on going on vacation this year, and I won't be vacationing in the UK. No staycation for me. But yeah, I've got plans. So more than the tax cut?
Is now not the time for cutting taxes?
Well, I don't agree with them, but let me explain why in detail I don't. The first point to make is that it's which taxes you cut and when. We have focused the taxes we've cut, and indeed the beginning, we're in the month where people are seeing...
Well, the tax bill's going up.
For what it's worth, and it wasn't worth much, to be honest. Ian Dunt's analysis there was not worth much. But is it ever worth much? That is the question I leave with the audience. Is it ever worth much?
Let's be clear about that as well. You're not a tax-cutting government.
Well, we are, and people are seeing taxes being cut. National insurance, which is going to be worth about £450 to someone on the
Cassie song, always going to Pro Plus up.
Average salary, and a couple where both are on average salary, it's about £1,000, right? So this month we're starting to bring taxes.
Hold up, he's mentioned that £1,000 figure like she did.
Pounds to someone on the average month where people are seeing...
Well, the tax bill's going up, isn't it? Let's be clear about that as well. You're not a tax-cutting government.
Well, we are. And people are seeing taxes being cut. National insurance, which is going to be worth about £450 to someone on the average.
Let's go, £450 a year. Let's go, £450. That will pay for your energy bill. Psych, it's not. It will pay for the increase on the energy bill. Psych, it won't.
Salary and a couple where both are on average salary, it's about £1,000.
So average salary, I think in the UK is about £33,000.
Right. So this month we're starting. Right. So this month we're starting to bring taxes about £1,000.
So that £1,000 figure, if he's citing the same one as Laura Trott was, they're saving £1,000 since 2010. Just as compared to 2010, it's nuts.
Right. So this month we're starting to bring taxes down, but that tax is on work. Right, and we're bringing that tax down. Why does that matter? Because it means that we can get more people into work earning better wages. That really matters. So in terms of why the IMF is wrong, we're focusing our tax cuts on growing the economy and reducing...
Let's go, growing the economy. Let's go.
...the cost of living for ordinary people.
This is Labour versus Tories, grow the economy, walking into hell. Honestly. Every time we need a thing for that every time it gets played. This is their economics corner. She's quite good actually, because I remember seeing her. She questioned Jeremy Hunt a while ago. That's the HNRC, before anyone says anything. And she did quite an interesting interview. Every time the IMF seems to get mentioned, she seems to pop out of nowhere and say something worth listening to.
dust up for the Chancellor as we get closer and closer to the budget. There's a growing expectation within the Conservative Party that the Chancellor's going to outline some rather eye-catching.
I can't play this one. I don't know what the hell's going on with Farouk's thingy. The clips he's uploading are just really, really fuzzy. I'm not sure what the hell's going on. I might message him. I might message Farouk and tell him something dodgy with his uploads. Now, this one is a fun one. This is Kemi Badenoch about the Tory revolt thing.
Tory plotters want to oust the Prime Minister.
What the hell?
You instead in charge. There are some reports that you're in an evil WhatsApp. Tory plotters want to oust the Prime Minister and put you instead in charge. There are some reports that you're in an evil plotters WhatsApp group. Are you involved? And isn't this a civil war just helping out Labour?
I think this is a nonsense story.
Oh, the journalist doesn't have a mic. Okay. Sorry about that.
This is the media trying to fuel lots of gossip about Westminster. We have serious issues that we need to deal with. Just now, you asked me about an MP who is standing down because of death threats. We are facing some very serious challenges as a country in terms of our global security. I think the fact that you're asking me about WhatsApp groups is a sign that the media are not serious about focusing on the issue.
So she's attacked the media, which is always a dumb move because they'll always find stuff on you. So it's a chump move what she's done there.
That this country is facing. And for the record, no, I am not. And I would like people to stop asking me.
Okay, so she's saying, for the record, I'm not in that group. Right. Okay. Kemi Badenoch is in a Tory WhatsApp group called Evil Plotters. So when asked about, is she in this group, Evil Plotters, she's actually in this group. What more are we supposed to say? What more are we supposed to say on this? What? Tried to send a super chat, cannot using mobile. I'm too lazy to get out. Nah, it's all right. Don't worry about it. In fact, but like, yeah, you know what's she's saying, I want the media to focus on serious stories. Stop asking about stuff that is untrue. For the record, it is untrue. Ask me about serious things, and then it turns out she's in the group. She's in the group. What? What are we supposed to say? What are we supposed to do at this point? You know, she just lied. She straight lied to her, and then it turns out she's in the group. You know, like I hope they keep asking her. Every interview she does from now and for at least the next 3 months, right? They ask her about this. They ask her about this because this is hilarious. And what's Rishi Sunak going to do? This is a minister for trade, right? This is the Minister for Trade actively in a group called Evil Plotters because they want to get rid of the current Prime Minister and put her in charge. What the hell? That's how bad this is. I don't get it. It's just nuts. This is so bizarre. This is so bizarre. We have a Prime Minister who's so weak right now. A gust of wind could take him down, right? Surrounded by a bunch of goons who want to take his job, who are actively planning in WhatsApp groups to take his job. When asked about it, they're like, how dare the media accuse me of this? Go do some actual serious reporting. And then it turns out to be true. Yeah, it is. It is a bit on the nose, isn't it? But that's who they are. And then this from Andrea Jenkins. With her dog. Why is her dog on Sky News? What is going on here?
I'm going to ask you about the WhatsApp groups though as well.
So hang on, let's go back actually. This from February 1st, right? The Kemi Badenoch interview. Then we find out January 29th. So after this story broke, I don't think the journalist had access to it, or maybe the journalist did, and that's why she asked. So she lied about a story where it was already briefed in the media or leaked in the media that she was part of this group. What the hell? Maybe it's what the focus group told them to do.
Plotters. What's going on? Are they actually evil plotters?
Oh, it's quite a cool name, though, isn't it?
It is. I like the name.
Well,
it's a bit trash, to be honest with you. It could be called something better, like, I don't know, Blue for Change or something. Oh, that sounds trash, actually. No, don't ask me for names.
I mean, I'm hearing that the left of the party, the One Nation, are plotting as well. You know, I'm hearing that on good authority. And let's face it, Kemi was in the group who was also trying to oust Boris at the time, if you remember. Her WhatsApps got leaked where she was saying, come on, resign to all the other ministers. So I'm not surprised to hear this, to be honest with you.
And you've gone on the record saying you want Rishi Sunak out, you want a replacement. Would you like to see Kemi Badenoch?
Thanks, Mithril, for gifting some memberships. Let's see who the lucky people are. Thanks, Mithril. I really appreciate that. That's great stuff.
Not come through the ranks?
No, God, no, definitely not. No.
So this is interesting. So maybe, right? If you want a Tory leader for the future, try Penny Mordaunt. She's a dab hand at holding us up. True, so true. I wonder, is Jenkins lying here, or was she not aware of this group? I wonder which one. Because it's possible, like she said, there's the One Nation Tories that are trying to get rid of her, Sunak. I wonder if it's the One Nation people who are pushing Kemi Badenoch. But that wouldn't make sense, or would it? I don't know. This lot is such a mess, right? I have no idea where some of them stand ideologically. Because Kemi Badenoch tried to be the kind of right-wing darling, right? She tried to be the person who's going to push the culture war, kind of another kind of Preet Patel or Braverman. And then her voting record, what does this keep happening for? I don't get it. Her voting record is trash. Her voting record, as Jenkins put it, is very One Nation Tory. Right? She doesn't vote like a Conservative. So why would Jenkins want someone who she's actively dissed to be leader?
No, I mean, Kemi, in Parliament, she's known as a great pretender. Because if you look at a voting record, it's not like the rhetoric.
Yeah, Mithril is the socialist Santa Claus.
She's great on the wokey stuff, but she voted for Theresa May's deals. She voted for more...
That dog does not look like it wants to be there.
Net zero. So she's not like she says she is. So,
what the accusation is, she's not a true... Oh, that's an awkward angle. She's not a true kind of... Whatever group Tory Jenkins is part of. We'll call it the Brexit group, right? We'll say she's not a true... she's not a true Brexiteer kind of Tory. A John Redwood, for example. Yeah, someone called the RSPCA. Kemi is not a true kind of Brexiteer, I guess. That would probably be the best way to say it. A true ERGer, right? Bruh, no, come on. Let's not make jokes about eating pets. That ain't right, I tell you. That's not right. Anyways, right? As I was saying, is it the case that this is a feint from Jenkins to say, like, oh no, Kemi Badenoch, no way, she's the great pretender? Or is it the case that she genuinely sees, because I don't think Jenkins has the most tact, to be honest with you. She's the one that stuck a middle finger out at a bunch of voters. So, I don't think Badenoch is going to be pushed by the Tory far right. It's very possible it's not going to happen, but I don't know, because this lot are such a clown show. You genuinely have no idea about the majority of them, apart from like the boring ones like Theresa May and that lot. They're the One Nation lot, right? They're pretty easy to read. They will annoy. They will be annoyed at Tory party policy. They will criticise them, but they will fall in line and vote. So maybe they should interview the dog. Maybe the dog will make more sense of this. I don't know. Maybe the dog should replace me on the channel. She's another Liz Truss. Tell everyone what's best for her career. Yeah, I was comparing her to South Africa wife of what? Whatever. Anyways, she named her pet a racist name. What did she name her pet? Anyways, sorry, I'm getting derailed here. As I was saying, Leo, maybe Jenkins doesn't like her, doesn't see her as the Tory party replacement, or maybe she does, and this is a feint. Maybe say, no, I'm not Kemi Badenoch, no, she's the great pretender. Or maybe it's the case that she genuinely don't like her. Like, she doesn't believe she's a true blue Conservative. She's a One Nation Tory, and therefore would not push her, because I don't know if Jenkins is part of this WhatsApp group. She might not be. She seems very dismissive at the start of this interview.
I'm going to ask you about the WhatsApp groups though as well. Evil plotters. What's going on? Are they actually evil plotters?
Oh, it's quite a cool name though, isn't it?
It is. I like the name.
Well,
I don't know. It doesn't seem like a person who knows about this group's existence versus Kemi.
In terms of our global security, I think that we need to deal.
Are you involved? And isn't this a civil war just helping out Labour? Tory plotters want to oust the Prime Minister and put you instead in charge. There are some reports that you're in an evil plotters WhatsApp group.
Oh, she's asking about the reports, it makes sense.
Are you involved? And isn't this a civil war just helping out Labour?
I think this is a nonsense story. This is the media trying to fuel.
So she just seems annoyed by it. So I don't know. Maybe that's just her general reaction. I think she does have a bit of a snooty streak, should we say? But if you look at Jenkins' reaction, she just laughed because it's funny, it's goofy. So I wonder if they're not part of the same thing here. This is not the evil plotters aren't a far right thing, kind of like a Redwood type group thing. This is more maybe closer to the One Nation Tory group. I don't know. The Tory Civil War thing is so complicated because there's way too many groups involved. At least with Labour, you can kind of figure it out. Allowing them on WhatsApp says it all. Yeah, we should ban the Conservative Party MP should be banned from using WhatsApp groups. They should have to message people individually. But anyways, it's been sorry, it's been about almost a 2-hour stream. It's been just over 2 hours. I think I started at 4:15. It's been a good one. Thank you everyone for your super chats and stuff. I do appreciate it. I do have the Discord. I'm going to plug the Discord again. I'll probably plug it every stream, to be honest. I do want to build it. Discord is free for anyone who wants to join. So I will put that here. But I'm knackered and I've still got more stuff to do today, which is fun. It was the hard right. It would be the evil plotters. That is true. So true, Mithril. That is true. It would be the evil plotters. It would be the evil plotters research group. Yes. It would be the EPRG. There we go. It would be the EPRG. That would be their group. TPERG. That's their group name. That sounds awful. The EPRG. That sounds so bad. It's all right. Don't worry about it. I started earlier, Mithril, to be fair. Earlier than I normally would, but like I said, I need more time in the evening. I need to go to the shop actually and get some drink. That might help. Get some cans. But anyways, I hope everyone's enjoyed the stream. I promise I will try and put up more community posts so people can ask questions, even though it's generally only QA that asks questions, and he asks sometimes he'll ask annoying questions I have to actually look up, but I will get better at leaving questions in the community post. So if there's stuff you guys want me to discuss specifically, I can do that. But it's been a long stream as is. Anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Take care, everyone. Yep. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you're watching this back, I salute you. Let me know what you think of it. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.